here at the Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques at the CCA workbench. And
Yes, sir.
Dave, tunas is something that you've been teaching me about for a long time. So go ahead.
Well, we're talking about tunas, and in Florida, you know, tunas get a lot of pressure. You know, they're very good to eat. Everybody wants to catch them. So they get pounded on pretty good. And that makes a fish that's kind of wary in the begin with even more so. You know, they're tough to catch sometimes. It's tough to get a bite out of them sometimes because they get hammered so much. You know, just the sound of a boat will sometimes send them down, you know, if you get close to them. But what we're doing here in Florida is usually you're trying to locate the birds. And once you find birds, you'll usually find the tunas. And obviously, this is going to be in pretty deep water. They like clear, clean water, usually warm water. And when you find birds and working real hard over an area that's a good ways offshore and there's a lot of action there, you're probably going to find tunas. Now, if you find small pockets of birds, you know, not like a big giant bird-nado with frigates and everything, but if you just see a few little birds, a few white birds flitting around and stuff on the surface, that's probably skipjack tunas or small yellowfins or even blackfin tunas. But when you get that great big bird-nado, you know, little giant column of birds that lights up the radar pretty good, that's usually a sign that you're on some yellowfin tunas and you need to head over there. And when you get to a school of tunas, a lot of guys will make the mistake of not getting their stuff ready and coming in hot, you know, because they think the tunas are going to go down and they run through the school and send them all down and don't get a bite. The best thing to do is to hang back, you know, get your gear all set up for what you think the fish are eating. You know, if you can, get a guy up on the front and looking through some binoculars and try to see what those tunas are eating, if they're eating little things or if they're eating flying fish, and try to match the size of what they're eating. A lot of times you don't get bait because we pull too big of stuff. You know, the tunas will eat little tiny things, some things that look just like a larva with an eyeball on it. It looks like a piece of 200-pound mono with an eyeball on one end. So if you can get down to that size, you can catch 40, 60, 80-pound yellowfins that are eating really little stuff. And how you do that is you pull little things to get them to eat.
Now, do you want to pull these close or way back, Bub?
You know, usually you're going to try to get them far back because, again, like I said, tunas are kind of spooky anyway. So the further back you can get, you know, the better. Although, you know, you don't want to get to so far back that when you get a hook up, the fish is going to be a long way away from the boat either, because you got to figure every second that any fish is on is in his favor to get off. You want to catch them as fast as possible. And tunas are the same as any.
So what was your secret about the island?
The big secret about the island lure is the island lure, and especially that little tracker, but all island lures, were made because the guy didn't want to pull bait anymore. And the first thing that we do is we put baits behind all these island lures. And you don't need to put a bait behind them. That little tracker with just a couple beads and a little hook placed at the end, that is a smoking tuna bait. Tunas will climb all over themselves to eat that thing without a ballyhoo on it. Now you put a big ballyhoo on there, and sometimes they won't touch it because, again, they're eating a lot of smaller things.
Maybe too big.
And that might be too big. Now if you're in if you see a bunch of, you know, 80, 100-pound tunas skying on big baits, you know, you can go ahead and pull, you know, a big cedar plug through there or another big island lure or
in the Gulf.
Exactly. And the cedar plugs, you know, every boat in South America has a cedar plug rigged up and ready to go in case they run across some tunas. And you should too. We should have at least one rigged up, all ready to go, that you can just clip on in case you see some tuna fishes. Because the good thing about a cedar plug is it's idiot proof. You know, it's
good for me.
Exactly. It's a good size. it's a good size. You can pull it real fast. And it doesn't matter if it's hopping and skipping out of the water, they will still pile on it. And so, you know, the cedar plug is perfect for when you want to do that. Now, if you want to catch a great big tuna fish, the best bait in the world probably is a little tuna fish. You know, a 1 or 2 pound yellowfin, or even a little tiny skipjack or a little blackfin tuna. That's candy to a big giant yellowfin tuna. But any live bait works great. So if you can get your hands on some live baits, even a bunch of live baits, so that you can afford to stop on a place and chum with live baits, then you're really gonna
pop out a sabiki. Remember,
correct,
you got to match the sabiki with the size fish that you're catching.
Right.
So if it's goggle eyes or blue runners, you want to look at the main lines, 50-pound and 15-pound off of the
right.
side.
And R&R tackle makes the best ones. You know, because Ray is a bait master. You know, he relies on getting the best bait and using it to catch bigger fish. And you know, if you're going to be trying to catch those big tunas, you want to catch, you know, some big blue runners and big bonitas and those kind of things so you can catch them.
You got about 30 seconds. Dave.
Well, one thing you don't have to worry so much about your speed a lot of times. You know, you can go pretty fast and still catch tuna fishes. You can stop and chum them up. If you're marking the fish down deep and they're not coming up for you like you want them to, usually at dawn and dusk is when they'll come up to eat for sure. But if it's in the middle of the day and you're marking a bunch of tunas down there and there's not a whole lot of current, you can start chumming and chunking and throwing out chunks and keeping a good chunk going. And sometimes those tunas will come right up behind your boat and you can feed them a chunk and catch them that way too.
We got some unfinished business here.
Yeah, there's still
That
some
was
more.
some really good stuff.
That was good. There's so much more to say, though, right, Dave?
Yeah, always.
There always is.